But we can go ahead and get started. Absolutely. So let's do the pledge first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So do we have a motion to appoint me as acting chair for purposes of this meeting?
I move to appoint you as acting chair.
I second.
All approved? Motion carried. Okay, so the first item of old business is the approval of the minutes of February 7. Shannon had comments, which were good comments, and Lisa has reflected them.
Looks good.
Good.
So I move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried. Then the next item on the agenda is the NRI CSC update. There was a special town board meeting on February 15 to adopt the NRI and maps. I attended in person because it was such an important event. I just wanted to witness it myself because it was so good that it actually happened. Thanks to your efforts, thanks to Margaret's efforts. Howard, I don't know if you have anything to add to that?
No,
You were there too.
it's interesting that it will probably affect the Clear subdivision. Because it's got it in under the wire. He was aware of that. That's probably why he hired all his lawyers. If that passed before he got approved, it would affect him.
Mm-hmm.
So they approved it. He only has a conditional approval at the moment, so that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. They approved him before that was passed, but doesn't have final approval yet. So the planning board has to figure out what to do, or the legal department has to figure out what to do now.
Okay.
Be interesting to see what happens.
So just for clarification, is that way when he does the subdivision, if it includes any wetlands, is that what's coming into play?
Well, jump ahead of myself.
Yeah, so this is sort of jumping ahead to
Sorry,
the other part of the meeting, which we can do if you want.
I'll just jump ahead and I'll get it done.
Okay.
The ZBA, rather the planning board, went into executive session to discuss.
So which meeting are you talking about?
Planning board.
Planning board.
And the date on that was, it was the February planning board meeting.
Yeah, Washington, February 20, yeah.
March 5th.
Yeah.
was the last
So
one.
March 5th,
That's
which was yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
No, yesterday they didn't meet. So
So,
did we do this the time before then?
Ours was on the 7th, and should have been right after that, right?
it would have
So
been
they
right
met the
before,
6th. They met the 6th and then they were
Right.
scheduled for yesterday.
and they didn't meet yesterday, so
No,
then, so then
they
which,
canceled yesterday.
then which
There's
meeting?
Only one person, I think that was him, by the way, who
so,
wanted an extension.
so what you're talking about is the meeting in February, which was
But
already
it affects
reported on.
the
Mhm.
town board decision is part that affects them.
Right, so the town board met afterwards. The town board met on the 15th, but the planning board meeting was on the 6th, and that was already reported on at the last CAC meeting.
All right. Do it again. The problem for the planning board though is with the new NRI, the zoning code section that says they have to address that. You just can't draw lines on a map. It says you have to look at the natural resources on there to protect the town's interest. And I think you all had a copy of that, and Margaret sent a copy to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking for clarification. Okay.
So that is going to affect the Clear subdivision, and that is probably the reason why he didn't come to the planning board yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's some, I don't know, there's some paperwork somewhere floating around, and he's got a lawyer, and the lawyer introduced himself or herself and said, I will be handling this case. So that, I'm guessing, because I wasn't privy to it, that is in regard to the NRI being passed by the town. Plus the other set of codes that we sent them, Margaret sent them, that says you can't draw lines on a map, you have to take into consideration when you do the subdivision, the natural resources, and protecting the look and feel of the town and so on. I don't know if I brought a copy of that again or not. You
Okay.
guys all have that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The town, the NRI maps are ready and they've been printed out, and so they will be here. The town board will have copies of them, all hard copies are ready for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is sort of maybe jumping ahead to the next steps, which is that whether or not there's additional steps that the CAC should consider taking. In particular, now that we have NRIs, we've got an opportunity to create or advocate for overlay districts that for environmental protection or for aquifer protection, right? I mean, so that there are provisions in our existing zoning code, which right now are inoperative because there was no data for anyone to say, you know, this is where the aquifers are, this is where the critical resources are. So, I mean, wouldn't that be a logical next step for us?
Seems like it, yeah. I mean, the NRI pointed out that the town and the village had different kind of bounds on the aquifer, and so the adoption of the NRI will solidify those boundaries of where the village is getting water from, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seems like.
I I just remember when I first came onto the CAC, I realized that there was really, that this was the sort of the backbone,
Mhm.
and that for us to be able to really do anything to protect large areas so that we don't have these one-offs when issues come up.
Yeah, and we had started to talk about a community forest or forestry plan, and then we decided to put that on hold until we got the NRI done. Walt and I had started putting something together for that, over a year ago before, and then we stopped when the NRI was a commitment that was going to be followed up on. And so we could certainly, one of the aspects of that seemed most important at the time, and I think still is identifying the connectivity and the continuity of forest resources and covered resources to get a handle on in the town, what are the interior and older forest patches.
Is that one of your maps, by the way? You have a 1415 map.
There is a map that has large contiguous forest areas that we can access. And so it does, it was one of the things I was going to bring up under new business is whether or not we want to revive that effort. Probably when there's more than four of us.
Yeah, but just thinking about actions between now and the next meeting, CAC meeting, I'd be interested in working on that and seeing what overlay districts we can get designated in the code, because there are these big slots that are available for protection that we've never been able to pull the trigger on. So
yeah, we probably have to kind of go through the steps to make sure we have what we need. I know the maps have aquifers in some, we'd have to layer them up in ways that can get us there.
because otherwise what happens is that people who are property owners or purchasing property come along and, you know, it's a lot easier to show them that something's protected if it's part of a district that's embedded in the zoning code, as opposed to just an item on a map.
Yeah,
Um,
it'll be important to know how the town's gonna make the digital resources of those maps available.
right.
Well, let me jump in ahead of, you probably got it in your notes too. The fellow from the Dutchess County Planning Board
Mhm.
has an app coming up on the website that anybody, and there's like 40 of these overlays in that mapping, I think, something like that.
NRA mapping should
NRA
be
mapping.
finished within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's similar to parcel access. This is fantastic. So you enter a parcel number
Okay.
and you bring up whatever you're looking at. It will provide layers of environmental conditions. So it's user friendly and it's going to have a list. You're going to have forestry, wetlands, whatever, rock. And you're going to pick, towns will be able to upload any current information found locally and be part of a countywide database. If we, as a town or any town, has additional information, we can download it to them. They will upload it onto their map. So like if we get additional or more detailed information and make it part of the permanent county map.
Okay.
So it was very exciting how Howard asked the question. And it should be available, he said, rolling out in the next 2 weeks. They are going to be providing training on how to use it, but he said it's really basically user friendly. And I think it will cover what you're talking about. And if
It sounds
not,
like it.
So-
if it doesn't, and
So
we
the
find it.
data will be there. And then the question is, so is there a way to say to the town of Washington, look, the data's here, this area is important, we need legal protection for it? Because
They were very much on board.
that's what this would be for.
Who, so my guess is they're not looking for just anybody in the public to send them things to upload.
No, it'd be
It would
the
have to be the
C-
town, right?
Town,
Or do you think the
CAC.
CAC could take a lead on that?
Yeah.
That would be great,
Yeah.
right? Because then we would be able to take a look at the NRI maps and make sure that all of the data on the NRI maps is there.
Yeah, it seems like that's the next step.
Okay.
And were they sending out?
I think it was going to be going to the chair, so Margaret should be getting notification of it. You got that? Yeah, and they were like totally pumped on it. Everybody in the whole room was excited.
Yeah, there'll be training sessions, the
Correct.
Dutchess County, well, cooperative, will train people to have a session or two, whatever. And anybody,
So like,
CAC.
any one of us could sign up for the training.
It was very user friendly. So you bring up
Okay.
parcel access, you have the whole list of different items that you would want to see how it lays on this piece of property, and boom, it comes right up.
Yeah, and hopefully people putting in their applications can start using that.
Absolutely. That's all right. We're really jumping ahead of ourselves here tonight.
Well, it's
Well,
all
it's an
tied in
exciting
together.
topic.
Yeah. Yeah, because it goes right into what you were saying.
No, you guys did those NRI maps. If I remember correctly, years ago, they were all part of a larger database. And some of them were clipped. I don't know what made it fit the town, but they came, there's a depository that has all these maps. And they just don't do the town of Washington, they do the whole map area. So that should, if that's the same thing the county is doing, they should have everything that we have then on our overlays. They should be using this, I don't know, I'm assuming that's where all those maps came from. And if the county did that, what they're putting on their website would have all of our stuff in that case then. So that would be a
Depends on
big
what
plus.
scale they're working at, which is mostly of import to the village. We had to scale some stuff specifically for the village, but otherwise, yeah, most of the data are,
Well, what do you mean scale? Those clipped out of? How do you
well, because
understand
the village is small things that were on the bigger maps
Yeah,
were saved as at one scale, but then in order to look at the village specifically, we
okay.
had to rescale things. And some of them were not, it wasn't just a matter of zooming in. I know Sean had adjusted
Right,
some of the
that's-
scales, but I think,
that's fine.
um,
But it all came from the same data set, is what I'm trying to.
there, a bunch of it's the same data set. Yeah,
There's one called Cougar, if I remember correctly, and then one or two others that had all the data maps. You had to go to them and they would send you the data for your town or whatever, or you had to
Yeah.
clip it.
I mean, it's all coming from Cornell Cooperative, and so they did ours, and they'll do the counties, and I would imagine it would be
Well,
a lot
Good
of
for you, but
similar.
you're gonna be the GIS person. You know how to do GIS, so you would be the person who would have to work with them probably. And it's good that they're gonna do that.
Yeah, yeah, I know I'm just trying to think of the stuff that because we did it alongside Clinton. And there were different things that were pulled for Clinton versus Millbrook in town of Washington. So there probably will be things that are on the standard that weren't things we asked for or, yeah, I mean, it'll be worth looking at, but you're right, it probably will be a lot of the same maps. We shouldn't have to ask them to add a lot.
So one of the questions that I'm thinking of, maybe you guys figured this out already, what are the overlay districts we want?
That's the project for this committee is to figure that out. You know, what, you know, knowing what we know about the town and the maps, what are the most important areas to protect through overlay districts. And I think, you know, we should look at the map, look at the definitions of overlay districts and see, you know, what we think is right, and then prioritize according to what the town would be most likely to be interested in. And I think aquifer protection probably goes to the top of the list as a result. That's likely to be.
Water is always a big thing with that.
That's something that gets everybody's attention, and it's not as controversial as some of the other possible
Yeah.
protection.
And it was like hugely problematic that the map of where the village is drawing water from was different depending on where you went. I mean,
That's right. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, really? There's a different maps for the village aquifers.
Yep.
That's odd. And the aquifer that we're using is the one on the map itself.
The boundaries of what constitutes the village watershed
Yeah,
were different in different maps, and the town had a different map than the village had.
that's interesting. It goes back to like
And neither of
1990
them
or
were
something.
correct, was my recollection.
They tried
right,
to,
exactly. And I mean, this is,
Yeah.
There's a law
Interesting.
on the New York State books for the village, us, town of Washington, village of Milford, that deals with that. Because they were trying to do something with the county dump, I believe it was, back where our dump was, our present transfer station. And people became concerned about who had the power to get things done. And they got a law passed from the New York State to define a aquifer region for the village, which coincidentally took into account the dump area, the transfer station area, as a protected area, which put a stop to that. So that's the one the village uses.
I mean, the village is supposed to be involved in all planning board, zoning board meetings that
Too bad
are
Mike
on their
Kurtz's not
aquifer,
here.
but it doesn't
He's supposed to supervise that.
happen, yeah.
Maybe you could touch base with him as he's on your committee and ask him about that.
who?
Herzog, Mike,
Yeah, he's not.
he's on Liaison,
Right,
he was also on your committee, wasn't he?
Whose committee?
Your NRI committee, your NRI group.
I wasn't on the NRI
He's on the
group.
climate smart communities. He may have been as part of the NRI, yeah.
I remember seeing him there.
There's so much overlap in these committees now. Stretching to remember who, but yeah.
He should know all about that. And he has a program where you put in the address and it says if it's in that district or not. And then there's certain minor things that New York State said apply. There's 3 zones in there. And primary, secondary, and tertiary, and primary, the ones where most of the water is actually at, and the other 2 are sort of drain. So that law has things that you cannot do in each of those zones, which would be a good overlay, and if that's, we don't have it, that's a New York State law technically, for the village. And they're mentioned in the law, there's 2 other places. So that's something that, would be a good overlay to have the village water supply.
Yeah, those are, I think, for the, for possibly we could discuss again at the April meeting. The CAC roundup, is that the thing that you went, the
Yeah.
event that you attended?
Did you want to do the ZBA before we do that?
Let's, this is, Margaret has this under old business.
Okay.
So we've done the minutes, the NRI CSC update, and now we'll do the CAC roundup.
Okay, so they had the CMC, EMC roundtable. Before they started with each of the towns, they just wanted everybody to know they have display boards and materials that can be borrowed from Cary for community and Earth Day activities. Lots of pamphlets, lots of paperwork, boards that you can set up, things to do to help. So if we do one, they gave us a website, which is a good website on roles and responsibilities of the CAC. So if you're in any question, you can go to that website.
That's nice.
Yes. Earth Day is going to be held at Vassar Barns down at the college on April 20th. They're hoping to get a big turnout for that. John Frederickson is the EMC chair, spoke about brine versus salt, saving dollars and helping the environment. And then the first step to talk for the towns was Margaret, because she was hoping she was going to be last. I hope you're listening, Margaret.
They switched it around.
She did a very good job, although she was cool. She didn't want to go, but she did a great job.
That's great.
Yes, she talked about all the things that we have going on, and I didn't go into list them. I just went on to the town. So, town of Stamford, they have a volunteer scientist on board. They're doing a roadside camping. They're doing a community garden, plant display in the town hall. They're working hard for a social media presence, along with publishing a town's newsletter for CAC events, and they've got their NRI back on track. They had kind of dropped off a bit, and they're expanding their membership from 5 to 9, so they're looking for volunteers. Town of Red Hook, they're doing a refrigerator recovery program, an electric lawn mowing campaign. They're doing a drive electric event. They're creating a brochure on the CAC. They're working on their second community solar field. They've got limited people on the committee boards, and they're not included in the CAC, and they never come to them for direction or help, so they want to figure out a way to become more involved with the other boards. Town of Poughkeepsie is doing a food scrap recycling program. However, they ran out of money and stopped. They have a large turnover from the various boards, and they're hoping for a better relationship and more to happen for this coming year than what happened in the past. Town of Pleasant Valley, they too followed on that one, said they also have a large turnover on their boards, and they're hoping for a better working relationship. I think everybody's got problems. They've got an Earth Day plan, green fair, an electric car plan. They're going big on Repair Cafe. I really didn't know what in the world they were talking about. It's the food pantry. Because I just saw it tonight, and I'm like, what is the Repair Cafe? They're hoping to get another one.
So the Repair Cafe is something that you can get points for under Climate Smart Communities.
Is that right? Okay.
And what it is, it's a place where you can bring your broken down appliances and have them fixed instead of tossed into the landfill. I think that's
Is that what that is?
That's
Yeah.
what that is.
Our library does it. Maybe I've seen it several times. So
And-
maybe once a year, or
Yeah, once a year, and
Yeah.
most towns
you
do
can
it.
bring like a lamp.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That sounds like you're describing it correctly.
They have a building set up right by the town hall that is open, and it's Repair Cafe. It's underway. They're I didn't know what it was. Community garden, the food pantry is moved into by the town hall. They're hoping for renovations on the new town hall to get underway. They've got a lot of electrical and up to code in that big building that's been abandoned for a while. Town of Northeast Millerton, letter of intent to put in solar fields on their landfills. They're measuring toxins coming out of the landfills, which has been very high. They're seeking more information on the open public meeting, drafted a memo on open meeting law clarification. Margaret was very interested on that, and she wanted to follow up with their chair on the details and a draft to an outcome on what's going on with their open meeting law, on what they found. Town of LaGrange only meets via Zoom. It was very difficult to understand the speaker. The only thing I really got out of it, they organized a bluebird nest, getting kids and the public to make and take home bluebird nests at their community day. Town of Hyde Park, they're on their second repair cafe, so they too have two of them. They're working on their third. They're installing electric charging stations. The solar panel on a closed landfill is completed. They're working on flood area and grant documentation because they've got a lot of roads and bridges that need attention. Town of East Fishkill is working on their CSC and most of their efforts being put into the Fishkill Creek Workshop Alliance. So what's going on there? Town of Dover, they passed a commercial solar with the board passed to doing commercial solar fields. They're doing a community garden with the Duchess Land Conservancy at 170 Dover Stone Church. The DLC is installing trails so that people can walk. They're also working on culvert and replacement of damaged bridges. Town of Clinton, they uploaded a new website. They have 9 members. They've got this 220 acres of a wellness resort, which is consuming most of their attention because most people don't want it. That is the
Which town is this?
Town of Clinton. They want that hotel to go in, the S6. It's like a Hilton. They're putting a huge 220 acre
Clinton?
in Clinton.
I did not know about this.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of attention on Facebook. People are protesting that they don't want it to come in. And the DEC's looking into wetland infractions about that property and for what they want to do on it. So it's a big hotel with resorts and people. Town of Beekman lands public. They're opening a small park. Make sure CAC is involved in all new applications and are reviewed. So anything new coming in, they're including the CAC on all new applications. So they get to look at it as a collective group, not individual. City Beacon, they have an Echo Fair cleanup, and the guy's name was Sergi, and I couldn't understand anything more from him. So Sergi was very personal, but you couldn't hear him. Town of Armenia, they're working on a solar campaign. Heat pump town hall collection. They got an $80,000 grant for EV charging stations, which is fantastic. They've been working with the town board amicably. Example was Troutbeck was being refurbished and a big project going on at Silo Ridge. So they are in conjunction with their boards and trying to answer questions on anything that might come up environmentally. Howard had a question. He wanted to know how the other boards specifically handled their executive sessions. One answer was only specific situations is executive allowed by Association of Town. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Well, yeah, there is an association of towns that sometimes will give rulings on questions. We're part of this, of course, we're a town. So that's basically what the referral was, to ask them for that. The other thing, now that you brought that up, they keep referring to us at these meetings as the public, the planning board especially. We're not the public, we're listed under government. We're approved by law to be part of government. Are we on Zoom? I'll tell you after how that started, but I don't want to tell you publicly. But
We'll have an executive session later.
Well, the law on executive session is very clear that, there are only certain things that boards can go into executive session on, but there's a lot of them that are permitted. So, I mean, whether it's discussing individual people or whether or not it's discussing litigation, those are all legitimate executive sessions. So,
That's another issue, the executive session issue. They're recently saying we're going to talk about personnel. That's incorrect. They have to specify the personnel area that they're talking about and the need for. You can't just say, "Oh, we're going to talk about personnel," and then everybody will leave the room for the rest of the day.
yeah, you can. I mean, that's.
No, it's right in the code. They can't use that. They have case law on that already.
Case law that says you can use it.
But you can't just say personnel. You have to give more.
But you don't have to give the name of the
No,
people.
not the name.
Just
But you
need
have
to
to be more
announce the
specific and
reason
say
why
just-
it's necessary for Adelaide on section 18-22.
Mhm.
That's what you said.
Right.
Can't stop it, but you just need to announce the reason and not specific.
But they just can't say personnel. They have to say, well, we're talking about hiring, so in this area or something. They just can't have a blanket personnel, and that's their reason to go in. It's in the code. It's not our code. It's in the law. I'm pretty sure about that one.
And the last thing was that owls, OWL, can be borrowed by the towns from Cary. They have 3 and it allows you to use a hybrid meeting of cameras that have, so they have a meeting.
That's nice.
So that's the recap of the roundtable.
Why are you
Very
sending all
good.
this out?
Excellent.
They said Carrie was, like you could borrow these from Carrie.
Yep, borrow from towns, the towns can borrow from Cary.
Well, that's very comprehensive. Thank you.
I haven't copied that, anybody wants to read it.
So then the new business, now we're on to new business. The planning and ZBA boards update. Now, there was no March planning board update, but might have been a February ZBA.
I think I sent you a link for the Zoom, which you guys should get on your own for the ZBA.
Mhm, mhm.
And I hope you
Yes.
looked at it. It was a couple of things that struck me as rather interesting is the ZBA always grants everything that I can remember. That very few things are not granted. So they granted them what I personally would consider excessive area variances to the borders of the property, where it's 100 foot from the road. They let people get to 10, 15 feet of the road. My thought on this as a conservation person is those things were put in place for a reason, not that just simply somebody coming and say, I just want to go above what was put in place. They were put in place for the look and feel of the town, maybe for environmental reasons. There was a reason why that was put in the code. And for all the years I've been going to those things, they hardly ever, if ever, stick to that. They just simply say, well, all right, we're going to have to give you a 75-foot variance to be that much closer to things. So that was the gist of most of the people that came there, as you heard when you listened yourself. But there was one person, I think, which one was he? Mulvey, Mulvey, Mulvey.
Mhm.
They gave him a 35%. Now, the article 391.7, which says town instructions to the ZBA, is you can grant variances up to 25% of
Mhm.
the bulk areas of these properties that existed prior to in 1971 or before. That's a specific instruction that they wrote in the zoning code to them. I have it almost verbatim. Planning would never, it's getting a lot worse now. It's now, well, all right, the first part of it is, if you are under that, they automatically give it to you now. There's not even a discussion if there's a reason that they have to give it to you. That's all part of their application. We're under that 25% rule or whatever, so we're allowed automatically now. That's the way the meeting is flowing. The second part is that they're over that. The ZBA says, well, we're simply going to do it anyway. We're going to allow you to have the larger part. So either they have to take that section of code out or simply say the ZBA has either ability to grant any size variance they want. Because that's what they're doing with that section now. The mobile people were given 35% for something with, want to put a garage or something in there. Second floor addition to the garage. So that put them much over the size that they're supposed to have. So I, for one, think that this has to be settled somehow. Are they allowed to do this, even though the zoning code says specifically, written in 2005, I guess, because before that you couldn't do anything with it. So they wrote that as an exception in 2005. Now the question is, this is an instruction to the ZBA from the town. This is what you can do. And they, the ZBA, said we choose to ignore that because we're the ZBA. I don't know that answer technically. Kind of a legal sort of a thing. Because they have the power to grant variances.
Mm-hmm.
But can they grant variances to the instructions the town gave them to do as part of their job?
They must have legal advice from the town attorney.
Nobody's ever touched that, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten a lot worse in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back to the same thing, and these things were put in when people did the comprehensive plan for a reason.
That's right.
That they want, and the reason generally is they wanted to protect the look and feel of this town and protect the natural resources of the town. And that's a lot of what the comprehensive plan code was about. You know, to protect what we have. And we have some thing that the property owners can do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying to you. I don't know the answer, but they specifically told those people in 2005, whoever was the board at that time,
Mm-hmm.
that you could not go beyond up to this point. You give them a variance up to 25%.
Mm-hmm.
If the property, the parcel was built before 1972. So the property existed in 1971 and it was non-conforming and they wanted to make it bigger. They were allowed to make it bigger by 25% of the square footage.
Which property was this? No.
Oh, this particular one was Mulvey, M-U-L-V-E-Y.
That's the second floor.
The area variance is second floor.
The one above it is for the.
They granted them a 35% increase in the bulk.
That's the milk calls, the dot high. That's what I thought he was.
Referring to, but I'm not. How's the second floor going to create more than 25%?
Yeah, they gave them 35%.
It's gonna be I think what she's saying is it must be the Milkov one, not the Mauve. There's two M's in a row. The Milkov is the one that was asking for a front yard setback and 25% rule.
Yeah, but I don't done Mulvey for some reason. If we could get the notes from the secretary then.
The minutes are posted
Oh, good.
Go back.
and they're not, Milkov is a side addition front porch, the variances, and they just approved it all, but there was nothing in the minutes about the 25% rule.
No, that came up. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is. I have two sets of notes here, unfortunately. And the Milcov wetland is good for the way.
So Margaret's not here to report on.
Increased to 35%. Okay, maybe it is that one then. Maybe.
So Margaret's not here to report on the zoning code task force, but this issue is being addressed.
Yes, Leslie is aware of it.
But it may not be addressed the way we want, but they are aware of
Whichever
the
way they
problems.
decide
Yeah,
is correct.
yeah. So Margaret, I think, will probably be able to update us on the task force the next time that she's here. Anything else from?
Well, not per se for us, because most of it didn't involve wetlands, but I hope you had a chance to listen to the ARGA thing on Zoom.
Yes, that was interesting.
Two attorneys battling out which is the correct interpretation of what that swimming pool is. Is it an addition to the property or is it a separate addition?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And yeah, I wasn't.
I thought you would like it.
Yeah, I was. I mean, the whole Yagard thing is fascinating. For what, but we don't have any resolution yet.
No, and it doesn't affect us as far as I can tell. doesn't get at any wetlands or environmental issues. It's just an interpretation of code.
which could have environmental implications down the road. So I think that, I mean, that's why it's it's just very interesting to hear the arguments, because some of them could come up again in an environmental context.
Well, if they favored Alan Rapelier, I think was the version where if the CBA doesn't have authority over that because it's a separate property, technically, or something like that, that would prevent a lot of the trouble happens locally when they put these pools in for people.
That's exactly right. I mean, if Rapelier's interpretation prevails, that will be helpful. It would be helpful to our
helpful, yes. So that was very interesting. It's, you guys, if you didn't listen to that one, you might want to go back and listen again. It's most of the meeting, by the way, unfortunately. They went on for quite a while. But all right, that's pretty much, ZBA time is now 6. You probably know, they meet at 6 now.
Okay.
Everybody's copying suit. I saw a lot of the meetings, whether Zoom or in person with the other towns, are 5:30 or 6.
Just hard for people who work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure.
I don't know why they're doing that. We used to have all the meetings, as you probably remember, at 7:30. Like ours was at 7:30. And the reason for that, given the years ago, was so people could work, come home and eat, and get to the meetings afterwards.
Right.
And what happened is, what I remember is some of the people on the boards felt it was too late. They wanted to get it over with earlier. And one by one, all the boards went to the earlier times, which, as you pointed out, are not convenient for people who work and had to come to the meetings.
Yeah, Board of Ethics is staying at 7:00 because we have members who are employed. They'd have to get home. They have to get home. Be one thing if we could allow Zoom quorums, then we could have meetings earlier. But if you're going to require in-person participation, anyway.
Now, you're saying, Lisa, that the most of the people had met at 6:00-ish or 5:30?
Yeah, they're changing, a lot of them were changing, but they had how many was in their group, whether they met via Zoom and what time their meeting started.
Oh, but they're meeting by Zoom as well?
Okay.
See, that's the other interesting question. Al DeBonis used to say you can do whatever you want as a committee until you get caught.
Okay, so that is it for the planning board and ZBA updates. We've already talked about next steps. We've kind of talked about the GIS software item, right? I mean, that's Margaret is talking here about volunteer grant or paid individual. I think that's sort of not our question, right? So then there was one new item that Margaret had, which is for our April meeting, the CAC April meeting. We are going to start out with a speaker from the 10 Mile River Collaborative. Claire Way, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, will be from the collaborative, and the Housatonic Valley Association will be talking to us about the 10 Mile River watershed. So that will be an interesting way to start out our April meeting. And that is all I have for old and new business.
She shared a link with me. I'm going to email to everybody. It's the definition from Department of State on open meetings law and frequently asked questions. So
Okay.
It's pretty informative and probably too much to go into here, but it is a good read.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
There's also a place, I don't have it on the top of my head, for the open meeting law. There used to be somebody named Robert Freeman had it, and he's not there anymore, but people could call in or write into that organization. It's under the open meeting law section, that you probably found it. And they would answer questions. And some of the letters that they had online were quite specific about them and lengthy and well written. So the open meeting law is extensively on the internet. And there is an organization actually that you have contact information.
Mhm.
And anybody probably could address it. They do things like school board, other boards as well, not just town boards. You know, and some of the rulings are quite interesting, by the way. So I don't know if anybody wants to do that. If you have a question, you go look that up on the internet. You can write to them and they'll answer. Or call. They'll answer your questions.
That's great. Okay. So the next meeting is April 3rd at 6 o'clock. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So meeting adjourned, 6:44.